Good morning. We have been asked to come today to talk about some things that the clerks want attorneys to know. And believe it or not, there's a few things that we want you all to know. And first we'll start with introductions. If we can start here.
Hi there, I'm Drew Laporte. I'm the Carter County Clerk and Master.
I'm Teresa Simmerly, Clerk and Master in Unicoi County.
I'm Brenda Downs, Washington County Circuit Court Clerk.
Johnny Blankenship, Carter County Circuit.
And I'm Sarah Lawson, Clerk and Master for Washington County. And we'll sort of run this as a roundtable if that's okay, just a discussion between all of us. And feel free to jump in with anything that is aggravating from attorneys, anything that you might think could be done better by lawyers.
Okay, I got with criminal clerks. They had absolutely zero suggestions, zero complaints, said everything's smooth.
Good job, criminal attorneys. Y'all can leave for this portion.
I got with the criminal attorneys that work both sessions in criminal court. I got with some of the circuit clerks upstairs. Circuit asked that if you bring your case, you're bringing an original, go ahead and bring the copy as well of the complaint for each defendant that's going to get served. That way, it'll speed up the process. If you come with just the original, we're going to have to sit there and make the copies. And you're going to get charged for the copies, and I can guarantee you your copy or your paper is going to be cheaper than us charging you. It's just faster if you bring the original and a copy for each defendant that's going to be served. Then the second thing they brought up, if you choose to serve it yourself, return the served copy. I wouldn't use the word ASAP, but relatively soon after it's served. We've had a couple attorneys that handed in like 6 to 9 months later. And meanwhile, we're getting a lot of phone calls from people, and we don't know anything about it because we don't have the served copy back. Other than that, majority of the surrounding attorneys within all the counties in the 1st Judicial District, Sullivan County, etc., we really don't have any problems with. Most of our problems in civil downstairs in circuit come from out-of-state attorneys. Specifically downstairs in civil, they have a lot of problems with attorneys out of New York, but they really didn't have very many complaints whatsoever. Just some simple things to make it easier for you guys and make it faster so you can get in and out and get on to your next.
And to that point about the copies and stuff, make sure that you feel free to call clerks and ask questions about what clerks like. Different clerks may like different procedures. So feel free to call and ask, is there any kind of procedure that you all like that's different than Sullivan County or different than another county? That way you kind of know what we're expecting when you get to the window, and it's not a big, debacle, because sometimes it can turn into that.
Excuse me,
yes.
sir. While we're on the topic of copies, let me go back to criminal court real quick. They did say if you're a new attorney and you've retained a client in criminal court, Sessions Court, you guys just come through our office and it's just easier to assist you. Criminal court, if you need a copy of the case file because you've just been retained and you call wanting a copy, just send the defendant down to get it. I mean, it's his case. That way, we're not having to stop what we're doing, scan and email everything to you guys. We just tell them, send your defendant down. And that's been going smooth. I don't know how you guys do it in Carter County. If you just make the copy or just have the defendant come get it.
They have access to look at it in our county without us doing that.
It's because you have better software.
But we do have the same issue with the service of process. where somebody will come in to file an answer, or I need to file a modification and we don't have the service back. And especially in civil and general sessions, it's a huge problem. They'll show up for court on their court date, they have their copy, and we never get it back from the out-of-state attorney.
That happens.
Happens every time.
Happens in Chancery all the time. And we'll have a case that's been open 9 months and there's no service return in it. So we start looking at, doing a dismissal within a year. We go ahead and start getting that ready, and then all of a sudden you show up and show that it was served on the 5th day after you took it. So yeah, return those to us and return the original. Don't bring us back a copy. We need the original where it was issued. That's important. So when we call and ask for that, we're not being nitpicky. We're trying to make sure that the file is proper. Attorneys and their staff need to take our phone calls to them seriously. If we call about something, it's because we legitimately have a question about what you're trying to do. If you're filing an irreconcilable differences divorce and you don't have an MDA, we're going to call and ask, is there an MDA coming? Did you realize you didn't file it? Or are you going to file it later? We're going to kind of follow up on that to make sure that the file is what it needs to be. Because if you just send that final decree in after 60 or 90 days and there's no MDA in there, we start wondering what's going on. So make sure that, when we call you, we're not trying to be nitpicky. We're trying to make sure that everything is correct in the file and that we're not misunderstanding something. And I don't know about you all, but I've had attorneys say, well, I'm trying to do something to outwit another lawyer, or I'm trying to play some kind of weird game that I don't understand with the file. And if you're trying to do that, just let us know. Hey, we know it's weird, and we'll move on. But we want to feel like we've done our job to make sure that everything is as it should be. Do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Really.
No.
I agree, because the chancellors, the judges are going to ask us first what's going on. So if we know, we can explain it at least a little bit and kind of let them know what's going on. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's important to know that we're not trying to make your life harder. We're trying to make it easier. We're trying to make all the litigants' lives a little bit easier, and our own. We won't forget that. Next, I had that attorneys should think like an outsider. Get back to basics, law school 101. If you have a hearing on something, we probably need an order or something in the file that says what happened at the hearing. And I don't know, Sessions Court, I know a lot of the orders get done like at the time right there. I know in Circuit Court and in Chancery Court, a lot of times there's a hearing that happened and the order, never floats in, or no one knows who's supposed to do the order. If it's your case, you need to make sure an order gets filed, even if you were told, so-and-so is doing the order, not you. You need to take responsibility for that and make sure that order gets filed. Because if that other attorney doesn't do the order, you need to do one and set out what happened. And there's a procedure for that in the rules of civil procedure and in the local rules for every district on how that's dealt with. So if there's a hearing, there probably needs to be some kind of court order or something resolving that hearing.
And we have that issue a lot in juvenile court for custody issues or parenting plans, etc. Attorneys go draft the order, and it never gets drafted.
Well, and the longer you get out, the more likely it is you forget something that the judge ruled, or you have conflicting orders that come in. So, I mean, the quicker the better as far as the orders go. And you just will forget because it gets off everybody's minds if you don't do it.
And the judge needs to be able to remember what he or she said during that ruling. And if it's, 2 months later, they're not going to remember. They see, hundreds of cases a month. They're not going to remember this specific case or your specific plaintiff or defendant. So make sure you're, thinking about those things. Motions and orders, they should be paired together. It's also to consider what an outsider who's coming in to look at a file, what information they would glean. Are they going to see that things are incomplete, that things haven't been done? So making sure that you get your case file in a posture where anybody can come in and look at it 5-10 years down the road and understand what happened in that case.
And I think
smiling
that
at
should
me
be
and nodding.
specific in their orders too, especially when it has to do with dispersing funds. The clerk, if we're holding funds in court, we need to disperse them. If you could be specific, because auditors follow our trail to see if we've paid out the money. I had one recently where it said I was supposed to pay $35,000 to the credit union and deliver the check. Well, there's more than one credit union in this district, and we just need specifics on that.
Yeah, the name on the check should match the name in the order. The amount on the check should match. Can't estimate. And we'd like to be rid of all the money at the end and not have a little bit hanging out there, because that happens sometimes.
We have the same issue with trust accounts, whatever, where the attorney does do their job and prepare the order and get the judge to sign it, but they didn't check with the clerk to get the interest amount to add it on top of it. So they give you an order for 10,000. There's actually 10,150, so we got 150 hanging.
Right. A call to the clerk would solve a lot of that. Just go over with us what there is in the account, what needs to be dispersed, and maybe even email over a copy of the order before you take it to the judge. Make sure it covers what we need for the auditors to clear things.
Yeah, you all would not believe how driven we are by what auditors want. If we call you about something that involves money, it's because we have to. We're not being nitpicky. We have to, because we have somebody looking over our shoulder at all times.
And we'll be the one to get the finding if it's not correct.
Correct. And then our county is mad at us because we got a finding. So we want to make sure that everything is right. Not being nitpicky.
Once the money gets out, it's going to be
That's
hard to get
right.
it back. So you better make sure it's the right person.
Especially if it's cut, not to an attorney or. But yeah. The next thing I had on my list is that we are protective of our judges. We want to make sure they're not having ex parte communications. We want to make sure they're getting all the information, that they need to have for the case, but not too much information from attorneys. And we have a lot of lawyers who want to just email the judge or the judge's secretary information, and they don't include all the lawyers on the case. So then we have to then do a filing of that email. It's a lot of work for the clerk, because attorneys didn't take the time to talk to other attorneys on the case. So make sure if you're emailing a judge or a judge's assistant that you have or even the clerk, that you've included all the parties in that lawsuit on that email. Any thoughts on that? That happens a lot. And I don't know if you all are privy to that or not, but
I haven't heard the circuit girls say anything about that. And of course, downstairs it would go to their assistants and they would deal with it.
right. We had a case, someone sent something yesterday evening after 5 p.m., an attorney asking for a continuance for a case that was on today's docket, and they didn't include all the attorneys. They filed no motions. They didn't really have a good reason for the continuance. So, these are things to think about.
I'd like to address like when runners come for your office, that you
Okay.
give them enough information, because lots of times we have questions for them. Do you need service on this? Where are we going to service party? And they're all like, they look at their note and like, it says come to the clerk and file it. And, they need more information. And I feel sorry for them at times, because they're put on the spot. They don't have the information they need. Maybe we can't reach the attorney at that time. And that would speed things up and get it done more accurately if you just give them a little more information
I have
of what
seen
you
that
need from the
happen.
clerk.
Yeah, they need to know if you're serving it, if the sheriff's department is serving it, if a process server is going to pick it up. And and this probably will go later in the video, but we have a lot of people that don't put addresses for parties in their pleadings.
Right.
Do y'all
Makes it
see that as
difficult.
well?
Mhm.
It does make it harder because, like, I have a case right now where I've got a 3-year-old case where I'm looking for a party and I can't find them because they never put an address in. There's no address in the file for this person whatsoever. So then I have to skip trace them and spend the county's money in order to try to find this person. So make sure you're putting addresses, and make sure you tell your clients and yourselves for this matter, but tell your clients that they need to, if they have a case that's going to be ongoing, or may have other issues that are going to come up, to make sure if they move that we get an address change for them, so that we're mailing things to the correct place. We get return mail a lot on older cases, especially conservatorships and things like that, where we're trying to mail out documents.
We have the issue in Carter County, which is unique. 2 different courthouses, Chancery Courts in one. I'm in the other circuit, and me and Drew talk to the office daily because they send people to the wrong office. They're checking on the wrong. Even the runners for the attorneys are coming to the wrong office.
Yeah.
And so
we had one yesterday where there was a check to circuit, but they had filings in Chancery. So, I mean, you want to make sure, obviously it's going to save yourself time and your clients and probably some money too, to make sure you have everything in order before you give it to the runners. So,
And that goes to another point. Please proofread your filings before you bring them to us. And I know that sounds very elementary and simple, but we have final orders that have different names in them because there's been a form that's been used and it's signed off by a lawyer. That lawyer should have read that pleading before they brought it to be filed. That is, you're signing your name to it, you better make sure it's right. But we have wrong case numbers. We have wrong court names at the top. The styles are wrong. It doesn't have a place for the judge to sign it, believe it or not. We've had a few orders like that have come in and, the judges just had to draw a line and sign it. So, take the time before you just sign off on it because, I know 2 of us here are lawyers and you get really tired of signing your name. You do. We get it. But you got to read that stuff before you sign it. You got to read it and make sure it has all the correct information in it. Simple proofreading. Please do it. Check that your check is written to the right person. Make sure you're sending people to the right place. These are things that you would not believe how often we see it. It happens at least once a day. At least. Anything else on that?
It is important. We had an adoption last week that became a mess because they had copied and pasted and had the wrong child's name in a couple locations, and people were needing to get a birth certificate quickly, and this really delayed everything.
Yeah, and it's fine to use forms. We have entire books, form books, but make sure you're clearing out those names before you start to use those forms. Have a master form or something that has blanks in it. Because if it has a blank, a judge can just fill it in. But if it's typed in there, and adoptions are especially terrible for that. You really have to have it right, or they'll send it back to you. They are nitpicky
They are.
at the vital records.
I think that's
we'll go on record
what
for
part
that.
of the V and vital.
The vital is for very nitpicky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. Do you all do the VRISM? Do you all fill those out for lawyers? The divorce certificates. Do you know if somebody in your all's office fills those in?
We do not.
We do not.
Okay.
I think we do. do, but I could be wrong.
We do them if they're not given
if it's
to
not,
us.
if they don't give us the
Yeah.
information.
But that's
I always
something-
put unknown on the information they haven't provided too.
Right.
Cynthia system.
The VRISM, the Vital Records Information System Management, I'm not sure what the M stands for, but attorneys can do those too. You can go ahead and fill those in when you get your divorce paperwork together and submit it, and then you put what court it's in, and we can pull it up and finish it out. But we find that a lot of lawyers don't do that, and I think that's a lack of training from Vital Records.
I've
I
had
don't.
one since that started.
I don't think they did a lot of training on
Yeah.
that. So
One thing I want to add with the divorces too is make sure, you know, a lot of times when I see attorney divorces with parents, I don't see the parenting certificates a lot. And
right,
then we'll have the issue where we may not have that attorney's client's address either. So then we're kind of stuck sending it to them, even though they may not be representing them. So either one, tell them on the front end about the parenting class, or at least give us the address that we can send the order, tell them that they need to go to the parenting class. It's just something that seems to be slipped through the cracks a lot. So.
right, because everybody's quick to file the Jarvis notice,
Yeah.
but there's stuff that goes on afterwards that we have to deal with, and we may have to mail you. So even though you got a Jarvis notice, you do have a duty to get that information to that client. So make sure that we either have an address where we can send it, or that you all are getting it to them. And the parenting classes are important. You know, a lot of people think, oh, they can do that any old time, but you really need to get that set up with your client so they can go ahead and get that parenting class done, preferably before the case is heard or over. You can help by doing your part to make our lives a little easier by doing certificates of service, and sending an envelope to us if you want copies. You know, if we're having to send out copies to you and you haven't given us an envelope, that's the county's money that goes to pay for that. Certificates of service, you know, the local rules say you can go ahead and sign that and get that to us. I have some lawyers that want to come and sign it after the judge has signed it, and that's fine. We will do that. We don't have a problem with that. But, you know, when I call you about it, you know, don't be smart about it and expect us to mail it out, because that happens a lot. I don't know if that happens to you all or not. No? Is it just me?
It's all in the eyes.
Is it?
It's,
We get it all the time where they haven't signed it, and they're like, oh, well, you do that.
that's when you use the eyes.
I was like, no. We're going to mail it back to you and waste money mailing it back to you because you didn't send us an envelope, and you're going to have to sign it and then send it back, and it delays getting that order entry done. So, I don't know. I'll have to crack down on that, I guess. Teach your staff how to use the calendar for your district. There's a lot of people who don't know how to use it, don't know how to read it, and I get it. It looks complicated and weird, but it's pretty easy. You know, there's an abbreviation for where the judge is, the judge's name, and you just kind of look out through there to see what they're doing. But teach your staff how to use the calendar. Anything on that?
I don't know of any major problems we've had with that. Because a
We've
lot
had
of time
lots
they
of weird
just
stuff.
a lot of times they just call
Yeah,
Melina or Debbie. But
yeah.
We do have some issues this time of year where they're putting stuff in March or April for next year, and you don't have a calendar for that yet, and so then they'll go ahead and issue process, and it'll be an invalid date. I'm not sure how you work around that, but
Yeah, I don't know.
And sometimes
It
I'm not
happens a
sure.
lot.
It's tough at this time of year when you
Yeah.
have these, you know, and we have I guess a tentative schedule, but there's a lot of changes
Right.
that happen with it because
Yeah.
there's
It's
been a lot.
snowball to the problem
Yeah.
you're talking
Right.
about come
Yeah.
February or March.
And the attorneys don't always get the updated changes.
Yeah,
You know,
Well,
because
and
they're
I think
changing daily here
The
lately.
attorneys
Mhm.
know how to use it, but they don't give that knowledge to their staff is what we see. We get a lot of staff call and they're like, I don't know where he's supposed to be that day, or where is, you know, Judge Cook is hearing this. We don't know where she's going to be on that day. And we've had that recently. I was like, well, it's on the calendar where they're going to be. So that,
But
I don't
lucky
know.
with
That may
he's-
not be
he's
a
only
big
there on
problem.
Thursdays
That
for
may
me, so
be
I don't have to worry
nitpicky.
about that as much.
don't have to
Yeah.
think a lot.
that's
do
true.
Yeah.
Chancery is a little, you know, we're kind
I'll
of
have
the
to
same
deal
place
with several
every
judges
week.
or several days. So
Yeah. Let's see. Anything y'all want to talk about in the interim? Oh, we are protective of our files. If you come in and start taking a file apart, we're not going to be happy with that. We usually can make you a copy of whatever you need. Don't come in and just start ripping stuff out. That does happen occasionally. Anything?
I'd say the procedure there is we'll let you look at the file and go through and mark whatever you want, and then just let us know what you want, put a sticky note on it or whatever, and we'll make copies of it then.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to look through it and look at everything that's in there. Just don't start taking it out.
If
and
you
messing
start
around.
ripping pages out, we start getting a little bit nervous and worried.
Well, and on that note, just maybe get with the clerk. In sessions, of course, our files are stapled together, so it's easy. They can pull the file, go to the page
Right.
they need, and they're not taking anything apart. But circuit and criminal, where it's open, and they're taking everything apart, but just ask the clerk. Do you have a minute to make a copy? But, you know, if there's supposed to be 4 in criminal court and there's only 1 because one's on vacation, 2 are in court, and she slammed on the phone, she may very well say, help yourself. But to me, just kind of make eye contact with the clerk. Just,
Right. Just
you
be,
can make this or you want me to.
just understand that we're going to worry about it a little
Yeah.
bit. We're not going to be, you know, sure, take it to your office and do whatever you want with it. We're protective of it.
And on that note too, I mean, I think it's important to remember that a lot of, I'd say most all of us scan pretty much every filing that we
need to take
get.
it
So I mean,
apart.
you could email us and we could email you just almost about any filing that's in that file, and you wouldn't even have to go through the physical file itself. So I mean, don't hesitate to email us if you're looking for something that's in the file that you're missing. We'll be glad to send
Right.
you.
And that's
electronic
different
copy.
from
So-
clerk's office to clerk's office. Some clerks scan every document. Some scan orders. Some have it available online where you can go and just look at it. So, you know, that's part of asking questions and knowing what your clerk's office can do. What can we do for you to make your life easier? And that's one of them that we do quite often is just email a pleading to somebody if they need it. We can usually email pretty much anything. But not every office is set up for that. So ask those questions and try to figure out how to get the information you need in the quickest and most efficient way possible.
I'm going to back up on what Sarah just said. In circuit, Carter County Circuit with sessions, etc., we have online access. Contact the clerk and get online access. You can do it yourself and look at it. Just throwing it out here, we had an attorney last week from Kingsport that was in the office, and he was showing me, why don't we have dockets online? Why don't we have this and that? And I took 2 seconds, showed him the password, and he couldn't believe he could look at it. And he's been there for years.
And that's
But you know, if you just take the second to look and hey, do you have an online access or do you have dockets on? Or, you know, like Drew said, email 2 seconds to email.
Yeah.
and we have 3 different
Yeah,
systems.
you don't even have to come by the office. I
Yes.
mean, a lot of times if you email us, we can get it to you almost instantaneously, unless you know we're slammed or something. It's a really nice. So
Yeah.
I'd take advantage of it if I were an attorney instead of having to come down and look at the physical file.
Yeah, I usually offer if they're saying they're coming for a copy. I'm like, would you just send
Do you want
my
me to email it to you? Unless they need it certified, unless you need a certified copy.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up 3 different systems because
Right.
as most attorneys know, Johnny in Carter County has Icon and we're stuck with Tensis. He can do a whole lot more with his software. Everyone from the press to parole to attorneys like his software better.
Right. And I have a completely different software than them. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. Ask those questions. I'm happy to talk to any attorney about what I can send to you. Some of the older stuff is not as easy to get at because we haven't scanned all the way back, but
Or it's in storage.
right.
Our
Yeah.
older stuff is at the
Yeah,
old
you all have
courthouse.
a lot of storage. Yeah.
But
So-
most attorneys are quite patient. I mean, they understand if it's an older case, we're not going to have it right there because of space issues.
Yeah.
Right. And then, that's about my list, y'all. I've got don't be rude, cuss, or tell off-color jokes. We can go over that.
You shouldn't have to tell
Well, I
someone that.
have. You would not believe it.
We do that in the hallway.
That's true.
So if you want to tell a joke in the hallway,
Yeah.
please.
Right.
See, that comment's
That's
gonna,
okay in Carter County, isn't it? It's just
I was going to
Washington
say
County.
that comment's going to confuse them because criminal court
Well, we're
gets
gonna
bad.
leave that out. Well, here's the thing, though.
Your attorneys
you're-
wouldn't last in criminal court.
Eh,
They talk about
I-
what went on in the hearing.
I mean, I've been in criminal court.
You know
I
what I'm
remember.
talking about.
But be respectful. Don't curse at us if you're mad, and don't come to the window where we're trying to be professional and tell us some sort of off-color story about your night last night. If you have a relationship with a clerk that's in that vein, that's fine, but maybe don't do it in front of the entire counter.
Why did you look at me?
Honey catches more flies than vinegar. Isn't that the old saying?
That's true.
If you're
but-
nicer, we're going to be nicer in return.
That's right. And that goes to the final point. Most attorneys are respectful. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. They follow the rules. We don't have a huge problem. I know this has been sort of a gripe session. But for the most part, I think lawyers they're kind, and they really want to help people, and they want to help us be better clerks, and they want to make our lives easier. So we appreciate that. We really do.
I agree.
It's very few attorneys make it more difficult for us. There's a lot more that try to make things easier for us.
Sort of
And
We could just get him
one
out of
day-
Carter County.
Yes.
We'd be good.
the people
One
that
day.
need to watch this probably aren't watching it. They're at home or on a boat somewhere or something.
And send more Christmas presents this year.
We do
Yeah.
love food.
That's true. That's another thing. We
The way to
love
a clerk's
gifts.
heart is usually
Bring food.
But we love food.
Food's always good.
Food is always welcome.
No, you attorneys, and again, I don't know which group that we're actually speaking to, but majority of the attorneys really do go above and beyond at Christmas time, and that's by all means not necessary, but very much appreciated. The girls really enjoy it.
It's always nice. We have groups that we look forward to bringing stuff in.
That's Sarah. That's
That's-
pinpointing. Certain attorneys do well.
Certain attorneys do really well. I have a list. No.
You can cut that out.
Anything else? Anything?
Try to review the local rules, at least maybe once a year or so. I know it's no fun, but
Yeah, it is dry reading.
I mean, the
But-
last thing you want is to get to court and get an exhibit or a witness thrown out for not following the local rules, and I've seen that, and it could be detrimental to your case. So, for some of you that do conservatorships, there's been a new statute. I think it went into effect. I want to say January of this year, where you have to get two exhibits to the petition, and a lot of that's going to be sworn in the petition anyways. But you have to have the exhibit showing that the abuse registry and what was the other one? The felony offender registry, and you have to include those showing that there's your petitioner. The one that's proposing to be the conservator isn't showing up on those. They're really simple. They're quick. I mean, you put them in instantaneously, get the results. Just don't forget that, because we do need that before we close it. And keep in mind too that the small state affidavit has changed this year as well. If there's any real property involved at all, you can't do that.
Can't file claims.
Yeah,
in a
no
small state.
claims. It stays open for a year now. It doesn't close automatically. Another one that just keep on your radar is that the partition suits have changed as well. It's a bit too complicated to go into at this point, but make sure you're aware of that change and look at it, because it is a fairly lengthy statute and change.
Yeah,
this
it
year.
will affect how you choose to file a partition suit.
And I think there's a lot more requirements on hearings and
Yeah.
offering.
Who you let
Yeah,
know,
and
and
it's a bear of a statute. But
it's complicated, and I think unnecessarily complicated, but that's what the General Assembly chose to do, so that's what we'll do.
I think the reasoning was behind it. Quit selling farm properties or these residential properties to these companies coming in and
Right.
buying them. I think was
They're trying
the
to
justification or the reasoning
protect
behind it.
that.
So,
The policy behind it is probably good, but You know, it does complicate things. Anything in Sessions Court that's new or criminal court?
Not really. It's going good.
Good.
I can't think of anything
Okay.
right now.
Just know that we're trying to do what needs to be done. We know you all are trying to do what needs to be done to make a court case go as swiftly and the least amount of issues as possible. That's our goal always. And we're public servants, so we serve you. And if you need anything from us, please call. If you have complaints about the way we do things, we have a special inbox for those. But no, I'm joking. Please call and let us know if there's something you see that we could do better.